Hello everyone, my name is Alejandro Chavarria, and I'm very excited, maybe a little sad, to do my last presentation on depression through an immigrant family lens, and to share just a little bit more about me. That map of Mexico right there, the green state, that's Chihuahua, where I'm from. So, goals, overview of depression, communication needs, some communication strategies based on a couple of themes, and then conclude. So, first, depression, also known as major depressive disorder. It's a current condition, and when we're experiencing, we have sadness, we have hopelessness. We're losing that light at the end of the tunnel. Then we experience fatigue. Our bodies are no longer recovering the way they used to. We're starting to lose interest, right? Our hobbies, our passions, those are starting to fade away. We're having difficulty with basic everyday activities, taking care of ourselves, brushing our teeth, eating, going to school. It's all becoming more difficult. Some statistics I found pretty interesting is that, first, looking at major depressive episodes. So, major episodes of depression that are 2 weeks long or more. We saw that 8.3% of all US adults experience them. There's a divide between males and females, where females are actually experiencing depression at a higher rate. And then we saw that 61% of US adults who experience major depressive episodes actually when treated, or 39% when untreated. You can look at it both ways. Then, why through an immigrant lens? So this healthy migrant hypothesis says that when immigrants first arrive in this country, our health is actually better. Our outcomes are greater than our counterparts in the US. And that no longer is really true. We're seeing that depression is increasing, and it's it's most likely because of these post-migration stressors, right? Those could be financial, because of job insecurity, housing insecurity, even just adapting to society. And we're also seeing these other stressors such as policy. Time and time again, the immigration policy is becoming more strict and less forgiving. We see this rhetoric. We see that more and more time again, immigrants are not being welcome here. That's all adding on. We see that Hispanics are the fourth most group experiencing depression after white Americans. Then these barriers, the stigma of mental health, and the depression doesn't really exist back in our homes. I experienced it. I never really had this the actual real understanding that depression did exist back in Mexico. Then we have immigrants have limited access to healthcare and to care, mental health care. When we first get here and throughout our time here, we have fear of deportation. Why am I gonna go to a doctor and give away my information if I'm scared that it's gonna lead to me being reprimanded? And usually immigrants are actually seeking informal care, so family, friends, or even clergy. All these steps are keeping us away from doctors. So this is really important. Looking at communication needs. So identity first. So when you're experiencing depression, your personal identity is disrupted. If I'm an athlete, if I am a really social guy, well, all of these things that I identify myself with, I'm losing it. I no longer have this energy or this passion to say hello to people or to work out. Or I don't, my body is no longer the same. I'm losing who I am. This means that some people feel like it's relinquishing control of their life. I can't control what I want to do. I might want to, but actually maybe I don't. Or even if I want to, I don't have the energy. This also disrupts family roles. If my job within my family is to be the one that holds the job and to provide the money. Excuse me. Well, if I have these depressive episodes and I no longer have the passion, I no longer have even the energy to go to work, that's gonna be really concerning. And for immigrants, looking at a couple of narratives, there's this idea that immigrants are always supposed to be fighting forward and climbing this heroic hill, looking for this American dream. Well, that's so difficult, because if you're an immigrant experiencing depression, you're gonna have a really hard time sticking to this quest narrative when you're this isolated family and having such a difficult time with being able to deal with your own coping, and also being able to stick to this narrative where you're always supposed to be 100%. Well, we're not 100% anymore. And this chaos narrative that most likely is going to be creeping in. Oh my God, like, I can no longer do this. Am I going to have to go back to, to the country I just left? Am I going to fail at being able to move my family forward? And what this means is that we're going to need validation. We need to understand, yes, this depression exists, but we can deal with it together. We can try our best. We need agency. We need to understand that, okay, I can gain back control. And we need access to family and beyond. We need to understand that our family is there and we can access them as we need. Then looking at family and partner communication needs, I looked at it through a couple lenses. So the ABCX and the double ABCX model. I bring this up because for immigrants, let's say you're dealing with depression, but then it's doubling because these stressors are adding up, because now we have policy stressors, we have immigration stressors that are mounting on, because we don't have our support systems. We are uncertain about whether someone's gonna knock on our door, and who is it gonna be? Am I in danger? This is all adding up. And then we have this idea of confidence. So one of the articles I looked at confidence, where mothers talk to their children. Well, if a family is very isolated, well, this is going to be really difficult, because who can you talk to? Who can you confide in? Then within immigrant families, topic avoidance can be really difficult. For me, we had a difficult time talking about our immigration status, but what about our mental health? We have this immigrant quest idea that I already mentioned. With this, you're kind of fighting for this American dream. Well, that's so difficult. And one of the things that I'm really sticking with throughout this term is that immigrant families are usually very isolated when they first arrive here, and that's going to be very difficult because we don't have those support systems. So it means all we have is our families. That means that communication has to be really strong, and it also has to be very careful. Within romantic partners, it's very similar, but it's a little different. You can look at it through communal and individual coping. So you yourself have to decide, how are you going to cope, how are you going to deal with your depression, and then how do you want that to affect your partner, and how do you want your partner to support you. And also within the marital stress idea, this is very important for these tiny immigrant families, who all you have are those two parents. So you're going to really have to understand and be really careful about the way that you cope together. And so marriages, when you have positive coping, when you have this positive back and forth, your stress is going to decrease, but the opposite is also true. So looking at communication strategies through, first, coping with stressors, second, providing social support, third, navigating privacy and disclosure, and fourth, managing uncertainty. So number one, the trends that why we're even talking about coping is because immigrants rely on this informal care when we're first trying to understand how we're going to cope with this new diagnosis of depression. This means that also we can see that those dealing with depression are going to have an increased reassurance and feedback seeking, and we're going to see this topic avoidance. So we're kind of starting to see, okay, like, this is really difficult. When I'm experiencing depression, I need a lot more support from my family and from my formal systems. This advice is going to be, give supported talk. What this means is that you cannot be dismissive, and you have to understand, okay, like, yes, you're dealing with depression and it's real. We need to break down that stigma. Then we need to have an open space for listening. We need to be the ones that, if we're supporting someone with depression, we need to make them understand that we're there for them and that we're listening. We're not dismissing them. We have the time for them. This is extremely important because we need the person to be able to understand that they can trust us. Then questions like, how would you like to talk? Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to give you some information? Do you want me to share my story? You need to be able to set these, baseline standards for how you want to be cared for and how you want to care, or how you can care. Then, looking at providing social support, the goal for providing social support is give matched support, basically, give what they need in that moment in time. Increase the self of belonging, because we're experiencing that self of loss, and buffer this stress and this mal coping. So, advice: online communities. I actually found an article that said that online communities are actually a great opportunity for people to not only cater to what support type they needed, and also what kind of information they wanted. So being able to understand, okay, like, what support type, if you're talking to someone, say, okay, what support do you need from me? Once again, like, do you need me to listen? Do you need me to share my own story? Like, what can I give you right now? Is it an ear or is it information? How would you like to talk? This means that giving them the perfect mixture of advice, information, resources, or just listening. And then this needs to be retroactive, right? Did I give you enough? Did I listen enough? What should we do next time? Should we do it again? Should we try again? Then, navigating privacy and disclosure. The goal is to create a very clear boundary to have a sense of belonging and buffer this stress. So within immigrant families, you have to set very explicit rules of disclosure and sharing, because you're so close knit. you have to be able to understand, okay, like exactly what are we sharing and how far is it gonna go. You have to ask for information limits. If someone is sharing and disclosing to you, you need to tell them, okay, you need to ask them, okay, like who can I share this with and how much can I share? Because once you disclose with someone, they also carry that information. Then you need to wonder, why am I sharing? Someone who's sharing, as a person who's sharing, you need to explain, why am I sharing with you? What do I need from you? And you need to understand, who are my confidants? Am I their children? Are they my children? Is it my husband, my wife? And you need to set boundaries specifically for who you're sharing with. Then to manage uncertainty, this is extremely important. Why? Because immigrants have uncertainty in every single direction. The goals are to have to create certainty and to buffer this uncertainty. What we're looking for is, we're watching for this loops of, taking away and coming back in. We're looking for these triggers. Is watching the news making me feel more uncertain? Is talking to specific people? Like, we need to be able to look out for who is experiencing this and be able to help them find certainty within their life, so that they no longer are bombarded with uncertainty and feel like this sense of hopelessness is amplified. One of the things that we can also do is plan check-ins, because they're certain, right? We know, okay, this person's gonna call me at this exact time, and I know I'm always gonna have them to talk to, and they're gonna manage the way that we're gonna talk. And also just acknowledge uncertainty, reinforce. Within my family, this is so important. We had to understand that our immigrant situation was difficult, and we were okay with that, but we had to talk about it. Conclusion: depression is relational. It reshapes our families. Communication has to be, culturally appropriate. There's stigma, but we can break through it. We can move beyond the silence, and we have to have open communication. Thank you so much.